Growing up, my world revolved around my mother, Linda Johnson. Her resilience was the bedrock of our lives. Even when the weight of the world seemed to bear down on us, she managed to lift me up. Our apartment was small, the furniture worn, but her spirit never faltered. I remember her working late into the night, her brow furrowed in concentration, yet always making time to help me with my homework. "Sarah, you have to believe in yourself," she'd say, her voice steady despite the exhaustion that lined her face. "No matter how tough things get, keep pushing forward. It's the only way out." Her words became my mantra. While other kids in school boasted about their vacations and new gadgets, I quietly excelled. My academic achievements weren't just a source of pride, they were a way to make a future for myself. Every scholarship I earned, every accolade I received, felt like a small victory over the hardships we faced. When I was accepted into a top university with a major in business, it was more than a personal triumph. It was a testament to my mother's sacrifices. She beamed with pride on the day I graduated. The ceremony was a blur of academic robes and applause, but her smile was the brightest thing in the room. "I knew you could do it," she whispered as we walked out, her voice thick with emotion. University life was a whirlwind of challenges and opportunities. My courses were demanding and the pressure was relentless, but I thrived under the stress. My professors noticed my dedication, and soon I found myself at the top of my class. The long hours in the library, the endless revisions, and the sleepless nights all paid off when I landed a job at a prestigious investment firm in New York City. The day I received the offer letter, I called my mother. "Mom, I did it. I got the job." Her voice trembled with happiness. "I'm so proud of you, Sarah. You've worked so hard for this." The city was a sharp contrast to the quiet streets of my childhood. My apartment was sleek and modern, a far cry from the cramped spaces I'd grown up in. Work was intense, but the environment was invigorating. I threw myself into my role, determined to prove myself. The long hours and high-stakes projects became my new reality. At the firm, I quickly gained a reputation for my work ethic and strategic insights. It wasn't long before I was promoted to a senior position. The bonuses I earned were substantial, a testament to my dedication and skill. But even with my career soaring, I never lost sight of where I came from. One day, my boss, Mr. Caldwell, stopped by my desk. "Sarah, I've been hearing great things about your performance. We're looking at a big promotion for you." I felt a surge of excitement, but I didn't let it distract me from the task at hand. "Thank you, Mr. Caldwell. I'm ready for the challenge." As my career progressed, I found myself grappling with the expectations and pressures of success. The firm's social events were a new world of high society and luxury. It was at one of these events that I met Tom Williams, a charming restaurant owner with an easy smile and a knack for making people feel at ease. Our first conversation was casual, but there was an undeniable connection. "I didn't expect to meet someone like you at an event like this," he said, his eyes twinkling with amusement. "Neither did I replied with a laugh, "but here we are." Tom's charm was disarming, and as we spent more time together, I found myself drawn to him. Despite our different backgrounds, his family's restaurant empire contrasting with my finance career, we made a genuine connection. Our whirlwind courtship was a mix of excitement and romance. Dinner dates in elegant restaurants, late-night walks, and deep conversations became our routine. When Tom introduced me to his parents, Elizabeth and Robert, it felt like another step in our relationship. Their success and elegance were impressive, but I couldn't shake the feeling of being an outsider. During one of our dinners, Elizabeth scrutinized me with a careful gaze. "Sarah, it's clear you've worked hard to get where you are, but I hope you understand that our family values a different kind of life." Her words stung, though I tried to mask my discomfort. "I understand, Elizabeth. Tom and I come from different worlds, but we're committed to making this work." Tom's proposal came amidst the backdrop of our growing love. The ring was beautiful, and his eyes held a sincerity that made me feel like the luckiest woman in the world. As I said yes, the promise of a shared future filled me with hope, despite the uncertainties that lay ahead. Life seemed to be falling into place. My career was thriving and my relationship with Tom was blossoming. But as we embarked on this new chapter together, the real test of our union was yet to come. Meeting Tom was like discovering a hidden gem in the midst of a crowded city. His effortless charm and warmth were like a breath of fresh air. The first time we talked, I was struck by how different he was from anyone I'd ever met. His passion for food and his easygoing nature contrasted sharply with the high-stress environment of my finance career. "Do you ever get tired of numbers and spreadsheets?" he asked, his gaze steady as we sipped our drinks at a client event. "Sometimes," I admitted, a small smile playing on my lips. "But I've learned to find excitement in the challenges." Tom's laugh was infectious. "I don't think I could ever get tired of food. It's more than just cooking. It's about bringing people together, sharing stories. Our connection grew quickly, fueled by our shared values despite our differing backgrounds. Tom's world was one of culinary artistry and familial legacy, while mine was steeped in the cutthroat finance industry. Yet, our differences seemed to only deepen our bond. Our relationship evolved into a whirlwind romance. Dinner dates at his family's upscale restaurants, spontaneous weekend getaways, and long, intimate conversations became the norm. Tom's world was a vibrant contrast to the stark corporate world I inhabited. It was refreshing, though sometimes jarring. One evening after a particularly long day at work, Tom took me to a cozy, dimly lit restaurant he'd recently opened. "I wanted to share this with you," he said, his eyes softening as he watched me take in the warm, inviting space. "It's beautiful," I said, my voice filled with genuine admiration. "You've created something special here." Tom beamed. "I'm glad you think so. It's a labor of love." As our relationship deepened, the time came for Tom to introduce me to his family. I was nervous, anxious about fitting into their world of high-end dining and old money. When I met Elizabeth and Robert Williams, I felt like a character from a different world stepping into a sophisticated drama. Elizabeth greeted me with a tight smile, her eyes assessing me with a scrutinizing gaze. "Sarah, it's a pleasure. Tom's told us so much about you." "Thank you, Elizabeth. It's nice to meet you," I replied, trying to sound more confident than I felt. Robert was more relaxed, offering a friendly handshake. "Welcome to the family. We've heard great things about you." The evening was filled with polite conversation and the clinking of fine china. But there was an undercurrent of tension, a subtle assessment I couldn't quite ignore. It wasn't until later, in the privacy of our apartment, that Tom's mother's reservations became more apparent. "I hope you're not feeling too overwhelmed by all of this," Tom said as we settled onto the sofa, his tone laced with concern. "I'm fine," I assured him, though I couldn't shake the feeling of being judged. Elizabeth seemed nice, but I could sense she was a bit skeptical. Tom's expression grew serious. "My parents can be old-fashioned. They value tradition and certain expectations. But I want you to know that I'm committed to you, not their approval." His reassurance was comforting, but the unease lingered. Tom's proposal came as a profound, if somewhat expected, moment in our relationship. On a crisp autumn evening, with the city lights twinkling below, he knelt before me in our favorite park, a beautiful ring in hand. "Sarah," he began, his voice filled with sincerity, "will you marry me?" Tears welled in my eyes as I nodded, the weight of his question mingling with the promise of a future together. "Yes, Tom, yes." Despite our joy, there was an undercurrent of tension, particularly from Tom's mother. Elizabeth's reservations about my career-focused nature seemed to grow stronger as we planned the wedding. Her criticisms were veiled but clear, often voiced in casual conversations. "Sarah, I hope you understand that a marriage requires time and commitment," Elizabeth said one day as we discussed wedding details. "Tom's business is demanding, and I hope you'll be prepared to make it a priority." "I understand," I replied, keeping my voice steady. "But I also believe that we can both pursue our careers and make our relationship work." Her disapproval was palpable, though she masked it with polite smiles. The wedding itself was a grand affair, filled with elegance and opulence. Yet, the atmosphere was tinged with Elizabeth's subtle discontent. I could feel her disapproval in every polite smile and every strained compliment. The first year of marriage was a delicate balancing act. Tom and I navigated the complexities of blending our lives, our careers, and our differing backgrounds. The wedding had been a grand spectacle, filled with opulence that spoke volumes about Tom's family's status. I'd walked down the aisle in a gown that was both breathtaking and emblematic of a world I was still learning to navigate. Elizabeth's tight-lipped smile had been a constant reminder of her disapproval, but I had hoped that time would soften her stance. Instead, the strain began to show as we settled into married life. Tom's struggle with the family business was a source of growing tension. His restaurant empire, once a beacon of success, was facing challenges that he tried to shield me from. But the financial strain and mounting pressure were visible in the late nights he spent away from home and the constant stress that etched lines into his face. One evening, after Tom had come home late from an exhausting day at the restaurant, I confronted him about his increasing absences. "Tom, we need to talk," I said as he slumped onto the couch, clearly worn out. He looked at me with weary eyes. "Not now, Sarah. I'm exhausted." "I understand you're tired," I pressed, "but this is becoming a pattern. You're always at work, and when you're home, you're preoccupied. I feel like I'm losing you." Tom rubbed his temples, frustration evident. "I'm trying to keep the business afloat. It's not easy, and I don't want to drag you into my problems." "I want to be involved," I insisted. We're partners. If you're struggling, I need to know. His eyes met mine, a mixture of guilt and exasperation in his gaze. I didn't want to worry you, but things are tight. I've been trying to turn things around, but it's a struggle. Our conversations about finances became more frequent and heated. I discovered that Tom was not only struggling with the restaurant, but was also hiding significant financial troubles and a gambling problem. The realization hit me like a cold wave. One afternoon, while going through some old financial statements Tom had left lying around, I found evidence of his gambling losses. My heart raced as I read through the figures, trying to reconcile this with the man I thought I knew. When Tom came home, I confronted him with the evidence. "Tom, we need to talk about this," I said, holding up the documents. "What is this?" Tom's face went pale, and he sank into a chair. "I was going to tell you," he stammered. "I didn't know how. I've been trying to fix it, but it's been getting worse." I felt a surge of betrayal and anger. "You've been hiding this from me. How could you let things get this bad without telling me?" "I didn't want to burden you," he said, his voice breaking. "I thought I could handle it." The strain on our relationship became almost palpable. Elizabeth, always quick to criticize, took every opportunity to express her discontent. Her comments about my work hours and our financial situation were frequent and cutting. During one of our tense dinner conversations, Elizabeth said, "Sarah, I understand that your career is important, but don't you think you should be more focused on your marriage? Tom's business needs him, and it seems like you're always absent." I tried to remain composed. "I'm doing my best to balance everything. It's not easy, but I'm committed to both my career and my marriage." Elizabeth's disapproval only seemed to heighten the tension between Tom and me. The strain reached a breaking point when Tom made a risky investment in a new restaurant concept without consulting me. He promised that it would turn things around, but it only deepened our financial woes. The investment failed spectacularly, and we were left with mounting debt. The financial burden was overwhelming. I found myself navigating a chaotic mess of creditors and financial crises while trying to support Tom. The pressure was relentless, and our arguments grew more frequent and bitter. One evening, as we sat amidst the mess of our financial documents, Tom looked at me with a mixture of desperation and hope. "Sarah, I need your help. We're in deep trouble. Can you use your savings to help bail us out?" My heart sank. The request was not just a financial burden, but an emotional betrayal. "Tom, I've been working so hard for my career and my own security. I can't keep saving us from these decisions." "I don't know what else to do," he pleaded. "I'm at the end of my rope." The constant pressure and Tom's repeated failures had pushed me to the edge. The person I had married was becoming a shadow of the confident, charming man I once knew. I faced a crossroads: continue to sacrifice my own stability for a failing venture or take a stand for my own future. After much reflection, I made a decision that was both difficult and necessary. I chose to file for divorce. It was a painful step, but the emotional and financial toll of our marriage had become unbearable. One evening, as I prepared for another round of mediation, my phone rang. It was Tom, his voice strained with desperation. "Sarah, we need to talk. I'm in a bad place." I could hear the tremor in his voice, but I was done being the emotional crutch he leaned on during his moments of crisis. "Tom, we're in the middle of a divorce. I can't keep doing this." "I'm not asking you to fix anything," he said, his voice breaking. "I just need you to listen." Reluctantly, I agreed to meet him at a small cafe near my apartment. When I arrived, Tom was already seated, his face haggard and worn. The years of stress and missteps had taken a visible toll on him. "I don't know where to start," he said, staring into his coffee cup. "Everything's falling apart. The new restaurant, it's failed, and now we're facing serious debt. I made mistakes, big mistakes." His admission was a bitter pill to swallow. "You should have been honest with me from the beginning. I could have helped, but you kept everything hidden." Tom looked up, his eyes filled with a mix of regret and sorrow. "I thought I could handle it on my own. I didn't want to drag you down with me." "I tried to support you," I said, my voice trembling with a mix of anger and sadness. "But you shut me out. Now we're left with this mess." The weight of his problems was almost palpable. I realized that no matter how much I wanted to help, some damage was irreparable. As Tom poured out his woes, it became clear that the once thriving family business was unraveling. Elizabeth, too, was entangled in the fallout, facing her own financial and legal troubles. A week later, I received news that Tom and Elizabeth had faced significant financial ruin. The headlines were unrelenting. "Williams' family restaurant chain faces bankruptcy." It felt like a cruel twist of fate. I had once been part of that world, and now it was collapsing in a way that was both tragic and distant. I met with my lawyer to finalize the divorce. The process was cold and impersonal. a stark contrast to the emotional mess I was dealing with. "We're close to a settlement," my lawyer said. "You're in a strong position, but it's important to stay focused." "Focused on what?" I asked, feeling a sense of detachment. "What's left to fight for?" "Your future," my lawyer replied firmly. "You need to make sure you're protected and able to move forward without these ties." As the divorce was finalized, I felt a sense of liberation tinged with sadness. I had fought hard for my independence and found a new strength within myself. But the emotional scars were deep, and healing would take time. With the divorce behind me, I threw myself back into my work. The promotion I had earned was a welcome distraction, a way to reclaim my sense of purpose. My career was on an upward trajectory, and the stability it provided was a balm to my frayed nerves. The financial rewards were substantial, but more importantly, they symbolized a fresh start and a reaffirmation of my own capabilities. I reconnected with my mother, Linda, and our relationship grew stronger. She had always been my pillar of support, and now, more than ever, I leaned on her wisdom and love. We spent more time together, sharing laughter and stories, rebuilding the bond that had been strained by my tumultuous marriage. One evening, as we sat in our modest living room, Linda looked at me with a knowing smile. "I always knew you had the strength to get through this. You're tougher than you give yourself credit for." "I'm just grateful for your support," I said, my voice thick with emotion. "I don't think I could have done it without you." As I looked out at the New York skyline from my apartment, I felt a profound sense of relief. The chaos of my past was slowly fading, and in its place was a sense of clarity and self-worth. I had faced betrayal and hardship, but I had emerged stronger with a renewed sense of purpose. The news of Tom and Elizabeth's downfall was a harsh reminder of the world I had left behind, but it also reinforced the wisdom of my decision. Their struggles were no longer my burden, and I was free to carve out a new path for myself. My career had taken off in ways I hadn't anticipated. The promotion came with greater responsibilities, and with it, a newfound sense of purpose. My work was no longer just a job. It was a testament to my resilience and capability. The boardroom, once a battleground of ambition and strategy, had become a place where I felt both powerful and respected. The accolades and bonuses were gratifying, but the real reward was reclaiming my self-worth. One crisp autumn afternoon, as I sat in my office, my phone buzzed with a message from Linda. It was an invitation for dinner at her house, a welcome chance to connect and reflect. I arrived to find her setting the table, her movements graceful and filled with a quiet joy. "Welcome, Sarah," Linda said, wrapping me in a warm hug. "It's good to see you. How are you holding up?" "I'm doing well," I replied, my voice steady. "It feels like I'm finally moving forward, but I'm still processing everything." Linda smiled sympathetically as she placed the last of the dishes on the table. "It's a process, but I'm proud of how you've handled everything. You've grown so much through all this." As we sat down to dinner, Linda poured us both glasses of wine. "I've been meaning to ask," she began, her eyes curious, "how do you feel about everything now? About Tom and the whole situation?" I took a deep breath, the weight of the past still lingering but no longer overpowering. "I've had to come to terms with the fact that some things are beyond repair. Tom and Elizabeth's downfall has been a harsh reminder of why I needed to leave, but I also see it as a part of my journey, one that has made me stronger." Linda nodded thoughtfully. "It's difficult to see those we once cared about falter, but it's important to focus on your own growth. Sometimes the best way to move forward is to let go of the past." Her words resonated deeply. In the weeks following the divorce, I found myself increasingly drawn to the simple joys of life. I started exploring new hobbies, from painting to yoga, activities that brought me a sense of peace and personal fulfillment. My apartment, once a reminder of the life I had left behind, became a sanctuary of self-expression and creativity. One Saturday morning, I found myself at a local art gallery, admiring the work of emerging artists. It was a new experience, one that allowed me to reconnect with a side of myself that had been buried under years of stress and compromise. As I stood before a particularly evocative painting, I felt a deep sense of tranquility. A voice interrupted my reverie. "That piece really speaks to you, doesn't it?" I turned to find a woman in her mid-30s with a warm smile. "Yes, it does. It's strange, but I feel a sense of calm when I look at it," she nodded. "Art has a way of reflecting our inner emotions. I'm Ella, by the way. I'm one of the artists here." We struck up a conversation that turned into a pleasant friendship. Ella's insight into art and life mirrored my own journey of self-discovery. She encouraged me to consider showcasing some of my own work, an idea that, while daunting, was exhilarating. As I embarked on this new venture, I also found closure in other areas of my life. I learned that moving on wasn't about forgetting the past but about embracing the lessons it had taught me. I began to view my experiences not as failures but as milestones that had shaped me into someone stronger and more self-aware. In the final stages of my transition, I received news of Tom's situation through mutual acquaintances. The Williams family's restaurant empire had crumbled, and they were facing severe legal and financial repercussions. It was a sobering reminder of the chaotic world I had escaped. One evening, as I reflected on the distance I had traveled, I received a call from an old friend, Julia, who had supported me throughout my struggles. "Sarah, I've been meaning to catch up. I heard about the exhibition you're having. I'm so proud of you." I smiled, feeling a deep sense of gratitude. "Thank you, Julia. It's been a journey, but I'm finally finding my way. You've always been resilient," she said warmly, "and now you're thriving. It's amazing to see." As I looked out from my apartment balcony, the city lights twinkling below, I felt a profound sense of peace. The past was a series of lessons that had led me to a place of empowerment and clarity. The journey had been painful, but it had forged a new path for me, one filled with potential and hope.